Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Bloomberg UK, a special focus on the biggest challenges facing the British government, the economy, financial services and markets. I'm Francine Lacqua here in London. Now, the British Parliament has returned from its summer recess to face a new problem, and that's crumbling concrete at schools. More than 100 schools were told to close buildings days before the start of term due to safety concerns, and it means thousands of children have been unable to return to lessons after the holidays. The government's not only facing questions over infrastructure, though. The Chancellor's plans to tackle the high cost of childcare have come under criticism, with the early years sector saying the measures are unworkable. The UK is one of the most expensive countries for preschool childcare in the OECD, and mothers of young children also having to weigh the economics of staying in the labour force. In fact, the UK's economic inactivity rate reveals has ballooned, with some 5.2 million women actually falling into this category compared to 3.7 million men. Now, more than a quarter of those women say they're jobless because they're looking after family or their home, and often it's because it doesn't make financial sense to work. Now, lots to talk about with the Chief Executive of the National Day Nurseries Association, Purnima Tanuku, also with me, Bloomberg's Olivia Konuti-Ahulu. So thank you both for joining us. Olivia, you've done some great work also in trying to explain, first of all, this crumbling concrete, which everyone's talking about, which is frankly quite shocking because some of these buildings weren't really kept up to scratch. First of all, who's the responsibility of having seen this and made it easier so that kids could go back to school this September?
Well, in terms of whose original responsibility it is, I think it's quite a difficult question because it's been a long-running problem which has kind of been several governments. But I think Rishi Sunak in particular has come under criticism because there was a point where he was asked about funding for school buildings, and at that point I think it wasn't expanded as much as it could have been. And when it comes to responsibility now, I think there's a kind of this rush to get kids in a safe environment just as schools begin again. So obviously it feels quite urgent.
Yeah, and this is on top of, the childcare costs going up and up and up. Purnima, so you basically represent some of the day nurseries across the country. What can you tell us about how difficult it is to keep some of these nurseries open and how difficult it is for parents across the board to afford them?
I think it's been very difficult for nurseries to keep open because we've seen 50% more closures compared to last year at the same time as last year compared to here. And I think primarily the three reasons really, because the government has been underfunding the earliest funding for a number of years. And of course, he never kept up with even cost of living increases, like living wage, minimum wage, and all those other increases. And on top of that, the hourly rate that the government pays providers to deliver that high quality is not even covering their costs. So a combination, of course, workforce crisis, people are leaving the sector, and that's causing most problems.
Over the last 12 months, how many nurseries have had to close because of it?
Over 500. And even the regulator Ofsted figures also confirmed that. That means number of childcare places have been reduced. But I think, closures of nurseries is really devastating, not only for the parents, but for the community as a whole. So they're not able to sustain themselves.
Yeah, nursery closures with cost of living crisis, cost of nurseries going up in childcare, often means that one parent maybe needs to stay at home. Often it's the case that it's the mother that's the case. Are things going to get better, Olivia?
Well, the thing is that when Jeremy Hunt kind of announced these childcare reforms, he said it was so that he didn't want any parent to not work because of barriers to childcare. But then the problem was, as Purnima just said, that the costs that the government are giving providers to meet kind of more subsidised places is not meeting the real cost. So in some cases they're being forced to put prices up. So it's kind of this vicious circle where, in theory, things should be getting better and there should be more affordable childcare being rolled out. But it's the costs, but providers are still having to make things more expensive, basically.
Anecdotally, it feels actually like it's harder in the UK than other countries. Is that why?
Well, I think if we look at the OECD statistics, that shows that as a proportion of wages, childcare costs are pretty high, and that's, I think, partly because I think I was seeing in the report that taxes are high, but then in the UK, but that's not necessarily rolled out in terms of childcare benefits in the same way. And also the system is really complicated, so sometimes there are ways of getting subsidies, but parents don't necessarily know about them or kind of know how to apply for them.
Purnima, first of all, is the government taking it seriously? I know that they've talked about it, but do you think they're doing enough in trying to really put it as one of the main issues that they want to tackle?
I think they say they're taking it seriously because the Prime Minister and the Chancellor announced a huge expansion from next year, 2024, for 2-year-olds. All 2-year-olds will be able to get government funding, and 9 months old from year after. But I think the issue here is the problems are here and now, and they need to fix those problems, because with all the cost increases, 80% of childcare in this country is delivered by the private and voluntary sector. So they really need to address the workforce crisis and the funding problems before any expansion can actually work.
There's always a timeline problem.
Yes.
That even if they put money to the cause, how long does it take for some of these bottlenecks to actually get reabsorbed? How long, it takes years to open a nursery.
Yeah, absolutely. It does take planning, and I think that's why we were quite surprised when the announcement came in the spring budget, because even local authorities are saying they haven't got enough capacity to be able to deliver this policy from next year. So that's going to be a big challenge, and of course you can't recruit staff overnight. It takes a long time to be able to recruit them, train them, and to be able to deliver that high quality. So it needs proper planning and a workforce strategy.
Yeah, Olivia, do you see a real commitment from the government, not just to talk about it, but to do something about it?
Well, I think the people on the ground are probably best placed to say that. And I think, like I said, it was difficult in March when they had this massive expansion of this massive package of childcare reforms, and I think they almost doubled the amount of money allocated to it. But there's a sense that it still isn't enough, and the shortfall has been the case for so long that, as Purnima was saying, that the catch-up is just very difficult to kind of account for. So.
But is it a money problem, or is it an allocation of the funds problem?
I think both. I think I've definitely talked to people who have said that other nations, we spend a similar amount as a proportion of our GDP to other nations, but how it's spent could be allocated a lot better. But as well as that, I think, again, there's a shortfall between the subsidies which the government is offering and what it actually takes to deliver them, and that's also an issue.
And through all of your reporting, which I have to say has been fantastic, you also did a huge piece, of course, on the NHS and some of the funding crisis. Is it the same with some of the childcare costs, that it really depends also on where you live in the country?
I think it can do. So again, a lot of people have been calling for more funding to go to more deprived areas, because as well as all the problems which have been talked about, there's also just an issue with availability a lot of the time, where parents kind of enrolling their child in nurseries before they're born, and they're still kind of being put in waiting lists. And there is a sense that if you're in a less well-off area, you're more likely to be in those positions and find it hard to find a place for your child.
Purnima, what do you need now from the government? More action.
I'm meeting the new minister this afternoon, and he's the 8th minister. That just shows the lack of continuity in terms of some of these policy kind of delivery. And I think what we are asking for is actually fix the problem with the 3- and 4-year-old funding at the moment, because providers are losing £2.30 per hour on every child, and they can't sustain like that. And most importantly, work on a workforce strategy to be able to accelerate some of the qualification issues we've got, and take those blockages, because otherwise we're not going to be able to deliver this policy.
So this is funding, right? I mean, you need more money. It's not. Can they take it from somewhere to put it there?
Well, I think it's funding, yes, but having said that, all that funding is not reaching providers, because what the government is promising on average is actually not reaching providers, because it's passed on through local authorities. No. And we did a Freedom of Information request last year. £45 million of funding that is allocated for early education and childcare did not reach providers, because it's been spent in other areas of schools' budgets. So that can't happen when providers are actually closing down. And I think all the money should reach providers to be able to deliver that high quality.
Purnima, thank you so much. Purnima Tanuku, they're the Chief Executive of the National Day Nurseries Association, and Bloomberg's Olivia Kunotiahulu stays with us as we take a deeper look at the growing challenges facing the UK government. This is Bloomberg.
The roof of Singlewell Primary School in Gravesend collapsed in May 2018. Thankfully, it happened at the weekend and no children were injured. The concrete ceiling was deemed dangerous and liable to collapse, and everyone knew the problem existed in other schools. Yet the Prime Minister decided to halve the budget for school maintenance just a couple of years later. Does he agree with his Education Secretary that he should be thanked for doing a good job?
Of the 22,000 schools in England, the vast majority won't be affected. In fact, in 2/3 of inspections of suspected schools, RAC is not actually present. And to tackle the 1% of schools that have been affected so far, the 1%, we are assigning each of those schools a dedicated caseworker and providing extra funding to fix the problem. In the majority of cases, children will attend school as normal, and the mitigations take typically just days or weeks to complete.
The UK Prime Minister there, an opposition leader there in Parliament after the summer recess on the controversy around public infrastructure and crumbling concrete in some schools. Let's return to Bloomberg's Olivia Kunotu-Ahulu and bring in Bloomberg's Phil Aldrich. Phil, I mean, frankly, it's a disaster for the government. You have 100 schools that are closed. We heard there from the Prime Minister saying, like, look, this could take days or weeks, but no more, and schools were reopened. I mean, we had an incident at our school, and it took 3 months to put it back together. Like, and he's coming under pressure specifically because he was Chancellor before.
Yeah, and he's obviously being targeted because he was in charge of spending the money.
Yeah.
But I mean, these issues date from before that, and it just does suggest that there's been some degree of government incompetence in terms of preparing for this crisis properly. But the bigger issues, from the broader public finances, what the government can afford. I mean, they're going to have to put some money into this. It may not be, in the grand scheme of things, may not need to be enormous unless the problem spreads to prisons, hospitals, and then you'll see that there's going to have to be so much rebuild and refurbishing work that it does get very expensive. So,
Phil, Parliament reopens, and you're a Conservative government member, and you think, right, well, we have an election looming. We need to get to work. We need to prioritise what people care about. What's on their agenda?
So I think there's the sort of backdrop to this is the public finances. There's no money left, so they've got to basically generate growth, because that's the best way to get the tax revenues. They need interest rates to come down so that they don't end up paying more on debt servicing costs, which is really taking a big hole out of their budgets. And they need to get people back to work. So the sort of back to work agenda that you saw in the March budget is very much about boosting the supply. So it's basically a supply side reform, like the childcare stuff is our supply side reform. So those boosting the labour force and getting growth in general have got to be their priorities, and hopefully with the supply side up larger, better, the economy in better shape, then interest rates could come down.
But if nurseries close and you can't find a doctor through the NHS, and this is also something that will impact, of course, Tory popularity at the next election, so somehow they need to try and fix it.
You would think, and I guess the thing is with schools is that it's such a physical manifestation of Britain crumbling, quite literally in this case. And so with childcare, as we were saying, as kind of parents and kids kind of go back to school and that kind of thing, there is this question mark over whether the reforms which the government announced earlier this year will be enough, as providers are kind of preparing to take them on board. Because they're going to be rolled out in April next year, or start to be, and there's a sense that providers just don't have the tools or resources to actually implement them fully.
Is there going to be a lot of shifting? For example, I mean, when you look at childcare costs, and we're saying it's a funding problem, but also maybe it's an allocation problem. Are there any quick fixes or medium fixes that they could do to try and make the situation a bit better?
Well, I think they've tried. So what they tried to do is basically the amount of parents who could access a number of free hours of childcare. They expanded that to families with younger children. But the problem is that requires a lot of money for providers to be able to do that at cost, and also a right amount of staff, and also just enough nurseries running. And those things are really kind of being crunched at the moment. So in terms of a quick fix, it's difficult to see how those fundamental structural issues will be addressed.
Phil, we had a big investor, and actually for the first time, I mean, he didn't say he loved investing in the UK, but he did say he preferred the UK in terms of fundamentals to Europe. Are things looking better economically? Yeah,
it's been one of those big issues that we've faced for quite a while. A lot of business leaders have been saying, the UK is in decline, and there's policy drift, which is putting off FDI. The signs are definitely improving. There's the Windsor framework, so there's this kind of pragmatism around Brexit. Now we've got the Horizon deal, which again is like this sort of confidence booster. those small details do help. And actually, if you look at the business investment figures from the ONS for last year, there's been a big increase. The super deduction, which is this kind of tax incentivized investment policy, which was introduced, which came into effect a few years ago, but has been extended for 3 years. It does seem to have actually generated some investment. So there's a tick for that policy. It looks like when you look at the business investment numbers. So yeah, there's been a pretty bleak sort of backdrop for quite a while, but it looks like people are feeling a little more positive about the UK. And those revisions to the ONS, our GDP's better as well. You know,
it's much better.
We found 40 billion down the back of the sofa somewhere. So you know,
there you go. It's stabilizing. We're no longer declining, which is very encouraging. Phil and Olivia, thank you so much. Olivia Konoto-Ahulu, Phil Aldrich stays with us. We'll talk a lot more about the Bank of England and Governor Andrew Bailey saying that the fall in UK inflation will continue. We'll discuss that next. And this is Bloomberg.
Many of the indicators are now moving as we would expect them to move and are signalling that the fall in inflation will continue. And as I've said a number of times, I think will be quite marked by the end of this year. Further, I think we are much nearer now to the top of the cycle.
Well, that was Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey there testifying. Now, for more on UK inflation and the economy, we're joined by Bloomberg's Lizzie Bird and Bloomberg's Phil Aldrich is still here. We like to say they're Bloomberg, just in case they're from any other channel. Lizzie, when you look at what we heard from Bank of England, okay, so inflation's going down, but it's not going to go magically to 2%.
No, but we actually just had some more encouraging data from the Bank of England in the form of the inflation expectations numbers. So actually they came in below expectations, 4.8% in August. The expectation was for 5.1%. It's down from 5.4%. And as a result, traders have pared their bets for where they see rates peaking. So now it's 5.7%. It's the lowest peak rate since June. You've also seen two-year gilt yields down even further. So it does matter. Clearly, Bailey's words yesterday mattered to markets because you saw that pound drop even before the ISM data and the dollar story. Yeah,
so what does that mean for interest rates? That's it?
No, I'm not going to say that's it. But I think, you know, markets, well, yesterday we're still betting on another 2 quarter-point rate rises. So you'd expect another quarter point. I mean, I think the Fed did this. They started signaling that they were going to pause, and then they did one more. You know, it's like we're going to pause, but we're still tough. And there's this balance between, you know, making sure that markets know that central bankers are still on top of, on the case, and not doing too much. And so, as he said, we're near the turning point. That sort of suggests that there's still going to be a little more.
Yeah, and I feel like last time, actually, we heard from the governor. He was really at pains in kind of getting a leaf out of Francine Lacqua's book. And like, look, maybe we're done, but we stay at these kind of interest rate levels. And so that could mean more pain for a lot of consumers and a lot of companies.
Yeah, I mean, you already had some more house price data this morning showing that house prices fell at the fastest pace annually since 2009. That's the Halifax data. Interesting on the international comparison, there was a note from Oxford Economics in the past 24 hours saying that they reckon the bank will cut rates many months after the ECB and the Fed. And actually, even though Andrew Bailey yesterday was quite confident in the resilience of the UK economy, he mentioned the ONS revision to the growth numbers. These economists are saying that they're not so confident in it. It's something that Michael Saunders, former BOE policymaker, has said to us, that you've had low growth potential in the UK since 2010. And even he, the former hawk, is saying that maybe it's time to stop hiking.
Yeah, because I mean, it's mortgages, but also I guess there's a lot of refinancing that kind of come towards the end of the year or into next year.
Yeah, and it's this lag in monetary transmission that is the big question mark in all of it, because so many people are on fixed rates. But I think that Andrew Bailey did acknowledge that in his testimony at the Treasury Select Committee. There was this clear acknowledgement that, you know, there is a risk of over-tightening and going too far and creating a recession, which echoes the scoop that Phil got, that the majority of Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor's Council of Economic Advisors, are worried about that risk of over-tightening.
Yeah, and how do you find growth? This is the million-dollar question, right? The Chancellor needs to find a growth plan.
Yeah, so if you increase the supply side of the economy, then you relieve some of the inflationary pressures because we can grow faster, and there will be no pressure through the price mechanism. But the growth plan, as I was saying, is basically you need to increase the labour force, which they're trying to do with childcare, and then they did it with these pension reforms. And now this week they've actually introduced these slight alterations to the welfare system as well. It's clearly they're trying to get people who are maybe who can work from home back into the workforce, and they would otherwise be on benefits. So they're making measures, they're making efforts there. The whole EU friends with the EU again. That whole approach is definitely another kind of like confidence in investment side. So that could drive up growth as well. But I mean, they've got to be clearly focused on growth to boost this, and obviously this interest rate issue for the government. I mean, for mortgages it's really hard, but it's pretty nasty for the government as well. It's expected to add 15 billion in 2028 or 2027, 2028 to what the OBR was projecting just back in March. Rate rises are really hammering the budget.
All right, thank you both for some great analysis. Phil Aldrich there and Lizzie Burden. Now, also be sure to subscribe to Bloomberg's In the City podcast that I host along David Merritt on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes drop every Thursday. And today we talk about rethinking capitalism and some of the things maybe that the UK government could learn from Apple. Bloomberg Surveillance Early Edition is next. Janali Bazak in New York, Danny Berger here in London, and this is Bloomberg.